Well, hello again, everybody. You've made it through paper number 2, talking about Martin Luther King Jr., his legacy, this letter that's kind of his defining moment in civil rights. Other than his I Have a Dream speech, this is the big one. Most people have never read this essay and don't really understand, were never really taught what Martin Luther King Jr. believed, what he was working for, how he wrote, who he was writing to, how he was making change happen. These details kind of get lost in our history classes usually, and we just end up learning that, and I think falsely learning that he solved racism when he didn't. He was responsible for helping make great strides towards fixing a lot of very bad laws. But he by no means accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish, which is something I think you'll see as you read this essay. I'm going to dedicate the video this week to Martin Luther King Jr. and to this essay. You're going to be doing a journal, your normal Thursday journal, on this essay. It's going to be our introduction and our only essay on how to write an argumentative paper. I'll be talking about your upcoming argumentative paper in next week's video, about what I expect, resources you have, all those good things. So if you're interested in that information, watch next week's video. This video is going to focus on MLK, what I'm asking you to do as you read Letter from Birmingham Jail. You'll notice that right when you see the opening of this essay, that it's not structured like the argumentative essays that you grew up probably practicing in middle school and high school, right? Where you write a thesis, and then you get your points, and you find a little bit of research and throw it in there, and then you conclude, right? Boring. You know, my thing already is that we explore in our writing, that we respond to real things in the moment that matter. And tie in ideas that are timeless, that bring these texts to life forever, things that deeply can affect how we live. As you all were reading Civil Disobedience, it was great to see almost all of you commenting on how the ideas in that essay were just so immediate still. Things that were changing your lives as you were reading and discussing, and it's awesome. That's what good writing does. So we're going to shy away from cruddy writing. I'm going to ask you to write differently for your essay. I'll talk about that, like I said, in next week's video. But let's get into a few notes on Letter from Birmingham Jail. And then I want to speak about some of my thoughts on these issues as they relate today. And then in the forum for this video, I'll ask you to respond. Up front, I don't expect you to agree with me. I don't grade that way. I hope you know by now that I care deeply about critical thinking, about listening to others and processing what they have to say, changing for the better. Those are big open concepts, but they're ones that we can explore honestly together here. So just know that if you disagree with your peers, if you disagree with me, do so thoughtfully, respectfully, explain yourself, cite your sources. I'm completely open to being wrong, but we have to be honest about our thoughts and think deeply and receive pushback in order to get to the root of problems and questions we have in order to find solutions. So I hope that you can engage with that with me and have a really good time doing it, and hopefully a mind-changing and altering time as well. But let's get into this essay. Letter from Birmingham Jail is written when Martin Luther King Jr. is in jail for protesting, which sounds very relevant to today. You are going to be asked in the only one journal on this essay, but it's going to be quite an in-depth journal. I'm going to ask a lot of you. You're going to be asked to look into the background, the historical context, how did MLK get there, who is he, what degrees does he have, what does he believe, who's his audience. Like I was saying just a second ago, argumentative papers that matter don't follow a formula. You'll notice that this paper doesn't follow a formula. He moves between abstract ideas, I, thou, you'll see at some point, And then he moves to concrete stories about his own life, about people around him that reinforce those abstract ideas. So that you learned at the start of the semester is still carrying through here. Everyone uses it who writes well. You'll notice that summary is extremely important because Martin Luther King Jr. is paraphrasing and quoting people constantly, whether it's in order to have them support his ideas, or if he's summarizing the people he's disagreeing with so that they can say, yes, this is what we have said, this is what we believe. Then once they know he understands them, he can thoughtfully respond. Think about in life if you've ever been in an argument. Of course you have. In the arguments you've been in, when someone doesn't understand you and lashes out without addressing the things that you said, everything falls apart. There's going to be no meeting in the middle, no understanding, no learning. It's just a fight. That's it, just a fight. But when the other person reiterates what you've said to them, understands it, asks if they understand it, and then you can clarify, and then they push back, knowing what you believe, but then very thoughtfully, you both are open to learning at that point. It's disarming. Coming into an argument, you need to be open to that kind of learning, and MLK is. You're going to be asked to research who he's responding to. That's extremely important to understanding this paper and understanding the civil rights movement. And you're going to see that he structures his essay around them. He says, you said this, here's my response. You said this, here's my response. You said this, here's my response. That's the structure of the essay. It's him saying, you said this and I disagree with you. Or you said this and I agree, but I'm going to take it further. And then he puts all those ideas next to each other in order to build to his main point, which is roughly, I'm just going to say it here, that his protests are thoughtful, worthwhile, and going to make actual change. So he structures his response to the people who disagree with him to hit that main point by the end of the essay. He even starts by saying, opening with the big abstract complaint, you say that these protests are untimely and that they're not going to be effective. This whole essay is about him explaining that in fact it is the right time and these are going to have an impact. And then he just goes through how they structure their complaint and he responds point by point until it gets to the end and has made a very convincing argument that he's right and that they're wrong. He still seems open to being pushed against, but he's still very thoughtful and confident that he's making the right decisions. This is a real effective mind-changing type of argument. Very few arguments out there that you'll find popularly are written this well, but they're out there. So I don't want to really go through this essay and break everything down. I'm asking you to look at who the audience is, what the context is, and I'm asking you to name individual writing moves that MLK makes in order to make an argument. They're very specific argumentative moves. He, for instance, redefines the word extreme. Taking a word used against you and redefining it is a key move in argumentative papers to turn the tide of it towards your way. He also uses very visceral emotional responses, stories to convince people of his points. And I'm asking you in this journal to name and explore and then explain some of the moves that he's making in order to argue against someone. And I'm asking you to look at how he does it, not hatefully, not with a spirit of me against you where I'm going to beat you to the ground, but he honestly, deeply cares that other people change their minds and knows that racism in America won't stop unless the people he disagrees with have a change of heart, not just a change of the law. And to highlight that, I have a few little passages near the end I'm going to read and just speak to a little bit. So he says, very near the end of the essay, this I'm going to read and talk about a bit. Before closing, I feel impelled to mention one other point in your statement that has troubled me profoundly. This is MLK speaking. You warmly commended the Birmingham police for keeping order and preventing violence. I doubt that you would have so warmly commended the police force if you had seen its dogs sinking their teeth into unarmed, unviolent Negroes. And he goes on to speak about that. The people that MLK is disagreeing with have said that they commend the police, that they commend the order that the police have brought over real justice itself. Notice the differentiation he makes there. He says that the police keep order, and it's true that the police have kept order, right? There's been protest and the police have gotten rid of them. But he states in this essay that that order is at the expense of real justice. He's fighting on one level to get laws changed so that racism will be literally illegal. And in that end, his movement succeeds in this time period. But on another level, he's fighting for the spirits of the people, for their hearts and minds, that they would change and see the ways that they're racist. And that's really what's carried on to be a problem today, because that doesn't have as much to do with laws as it has to do with individuals saying, here's the ways that I've done racist things, how can I stop doing them? It's been a pleasure so far working with you all in this class. It's been amazing to see so many thoughtful people come together in the journals and the forums. It's been a real joy. Sometimes you have classes where no one wants to participate in these things, and this one's been really fun. So, have fun studying this, think hard, think deeply, respond to me, push back. I think we're going to have a good time learning here. I look forward to seeing all of that, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.